And Luke Schenn. And who is this? Oh, it's Tanner Jeannot. Wouldn't you know? Luke with a left hand. Another left hand. Popped him right on the button. Another left hand. Another left. Jeannot trying to throw a left himself. And Luke Schenn had tagged him a couple of times.
This is Talkin' Audio.
Here it is.
I don't know if Tanner Jeannot was ever one of Luke's troops, but I know tonight he ate a few of Luke's dukes. It is an all-new episode of the Talkin' Audio podcast. Buds and Bolts Game 2. Leafs even the series with a 7-2 beatdown of the Lightning to answer the 7-3 beatdown the Lightning laid on the Leafs the other night. Matty Laing's back. Feeling a little better tonight, Matty?
I don't know what to tell you. I was debating on what my entrance should be there, whether I should have come in super hot or that I was going to beg you in post-production to put the Undertaker dong.
Dong or gong? Those are different, idiots. Right?
Well, the dong, the sound, like the gong sound.
I got the gong, yeah. I don't know if we need to see the Undertaker's dong.
I don't want to see that. That's for Michelle McCool only. For everybody, I think we were upset but level-headed, but there was a lot of people saying the Leafs were going to the golf course. They were going to be hitting the Toronto private golf courses, the DVP up at the 401 in Yonge Street. But like last year, and all due respect to you, you said it, we won 5-0 last year in Game 1, and things got flipped on his head in Game 2.
Yeah, they came back.
I didn't expect it to be almost the exact same score.
Right.
That was crazy. I did take the Leafs to win 4-0.
Okay.
I thought that was going to happen for a little bit there. I was getting pretty excited.
So on top of the Leafs winning, is your pocket a little more full? Did this go your way? Or are we still waiting on a
You know what? The pocketbook did not follow through. I took the Leafs 5-2 and 4-0. I did have one parlay over 5.5 goals in the game, over 1.5 in the first period, Leafs to win, and an Austin Matthews goal. Obviously, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I had another one with over 5.5, Leafs to win, Rielly to score.
Okay.
No OT. There was one other piece to the parlay that cashed. Rielly to get 3 shots, Matthews to get 4. Matthews finished with 3 the last time I checked. Austin finished with 3. Rielly had 3, but at some point they took one away. So, it wasn't a good day on the betting books. I didn't just take them straight up, and that's, Cardinal sin number 1 when you're making bets.
Right. It was an interesting game, man. Flipped almost exactly on its head. Leafs up 3-0 after the first, which is exactly how they found themselves down in Game 1. They come out and actually were flat out dominant to start the second period. It just won't go. Tampa comes back and scores, and you're like, oh, geez, right? We've all seen this play before. The momentum turns on its head. And to their credit, they came back and they continued to press, and they end up putting 3 more on the board again before the end of the second period, which basically leaves this one all but over heading into the third period. And the only thing left to wonder is whether or not Tampa will spend the entire third period trying to run you out of the building and set the tone, as it were. And we did see some of that in the third. But overall, what did you make of Game 2, and what did you think they tidied up, or what changed for Toronto compared to Game 1?
They were moving their goddamn feet.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, honestly, like the moment that game started, and, the puck came into our end before we went down, before they went down. I might be mistaken there, but, before we get down there and, we get the tripping, the hooking call, whatever it was that set up that first goal. But even after that, they were moving their feet consistently in our end. That was the biggest difference that I saw, that, what I was complaining about last game, which was it just seemed not even that they were a half step ahead of us. They seemed to be a full step ahead of us, especially in our end. And it wasn't even on set plays. These were plays in Game 1 that made it look like they were sick and hadn't recovered, or they were,
They all went for sushi at the wrong spot before the game, or taco night
Honestly,
or
though, right? It looked like they were like, oh, that's happening. And then they started skating, which today, the defense in our end, it looked amazing.
Mhm.
Every time Tampa was in our end, we were on them. We were not only on the guy with the puck, we were covering where we should be. We were cutting the ice off where we should be. And that made a huge difference to the fact that Tampa couldn't set up in our end like they did last game, right? And hilariously, what it is it wasn't the times they set up last game that they scored. It was the times where we lost coverage and the next pass was in the net.
Yeah.
There was that one that I can't remember where it was now, but we were talking about this last podcast where it was like Timbits hockey. We had 4 guys on one end of the ice.
Yeah, and points left wide open to just walk right down Main Street, right? And
Yeah, I mean, like in beer league, I'm complaining about this stuff, right? So this was a far better game. Obviously, that goes without saying. This was the team that we're used to watching.
Now it's worth
8 out of
mentioning,
10 times.
right? It's worth mentioning. No Eric Chernak and no Victor Hedman. No idea at this point how long either one will be out. I'll be honest with you, and you and I kind of a little snarky talked about it after game 1 that Chernak was probably selling it a bit. Make sure Bunting gets suspended, which he has for 3 games, and then he'd probably be back in there. He wasn't. Hedman doesn't. Hedman was listed as a game time decision. Didn't even take warm up, so I don't actually know what's up with him. They're keeping that pretty tight to the vest. Maybe,
especially because he left so early in the game, right?
Yeah,
in game 1.
Maybe when you come in, dominate game 1 the way you did, you got the split like you wanted. Maybe it's not. Like, maybe it's serious, but maybe it's not, and you're just like, whatever it is, let's give him the extra day. We got the split. He'll play if we need him back in game 3, right? It could be that simple. But the Leafs, I do wonder what your opinion is. How much better were they, and how much was just running over a clearly, decimated blue line for Tampa Bay? Do you think if those 2 guys had played, this score, or at least the result, is still, the way it played out?
Listen, the way the Leafs played today, they're beating Tampa 8 out of 10 times.
Maybe they don't
even
put
with the
7
stack
up,
lineup.
but you're winning.
Yeah,
right?
You're winning 4-2, 4-1, 4-3, whatever.
Sure.
Whatever it is. Just the same way that if the Leafs play the way they did in Game 1, I don't think Game 1 was an indication that Tampa is a better team. And we talked about that. Sportsnet did not. TSN did not. But, this was a team. And like we said, and, even though we're upset because we want that good Game 1, everybody does, especially fans. Maybe fans more than the team, quite frankly.
It kind of looked like it that night.
That night, for sure, right? And it comes down to this was a team that 6.5 times out of 10 not only won the game, but probably 4 times out of 10 decimated teams.
Right.
Whether it was scoreboard or scoreboard and outplayed, this was a team that just went in about their business and put up points. Whether Tavares was out, Rielly was out, Matthews was out, didn't matter. This team showed up and skated and did the right things.
Mm-hmm.
Game 1 was, like we said, hopefully an aberration of God knows what factors. Maybe, Mercury was in retrograde or something like that. You can ask one of your girlfriends about that stuff. I have no idea. But I don't know. But, this was the team that we came to expect, right? In Game 1, if this team comes out and we still lose, our discussion on Tuesday is different, right? It's like, we did all the right things. The puck doesn't go the right way. Let's move on.
Sure.
Right? Unfortunately, or like we said, maybe fortunately, it wasn't that way. We took a big beating.
Yeah,
and
you mentioned that after Game 1, that maybe it was better that you didn't just you just sort of got beat, bad bouncer to. No, that was a slap in the face, and maybe it was a wake-up call, and you come back and you go, we weren't close to good enough, right?
Well, you know who it was a wake-up call for? Johnny Toronto. Just unbelievable today. At least six shots last time I checked. I don't know if he had another one. I know,
hat trick will do.
They obviously kept the guys on the bench with Cory Perry out there being an absolute fucking
Maroon
goon.
running around.
Yeah, keep those guys off, obviously, right? Austin Reese getting all his ice time all of a sudden, right? He's like
sure
gassed out going.
I don't know that I even noticed Sam Lafferty existed in the first 2 periods. He was killing it in the third, right? Eating all kinds of ice time.
Man, we talked about it, and again, Matthews didn't have a huge impact on this game. I think he
2 assists.
He did have his moments. Yeah. He had some, you took it right out of my mouth there.
Sorry, yeah.
He had some assists there. What I noticed on that second assist specifically was how he just took the attention of the Tampa defense away.
Right.
And at that point, it was 5-1, 5-2, whatever it was. But he goes into the zone, takes the puck in the corner, and it just like nobody else existed.
Yeah.
Right? Like he did that thing where he just mesmerized everybody. A pass later, it's in the net. And if that's the way teams want to play Austin Matthews, I'm pretty sure he's okay with it. If it's going to leave Johnny out front, if it's going to leave Ryan O'Reilly out front, if it's going to leave Willie out front just for these nice little, wrist shots and tap-ins.
Yeah.
I think we'll all live with that.
Well, so let's talk for a second about the other key member of that top line, because you were a little hard on Mitchie after game one, and he had 3 assists in that game, but you weren't in love with what he'd done. He does come out to start this game, draws the, I believe it was him who got tripped, draws the penalty to start the game. He ends up scoring. He puts in another one later. Are we taking back anything we thought after the first, or is it no? The first one was bad and the second one was good. Bit. Like what do you think of Mitch tonight?
I am keeping the company line here. That was a bad first game for him, and I know. Listen, he had some assists. In game one, we expect that. That's okay. It was more his play without the puck, right? And I mentioned a couple times, I'm not the guy who's like, oh, he didn't skate hard into the corner every shift. Because I don't sometimes you're just the last guy on the ice at a change and you're trying to, let your team change. Sometimes you're trying to take an angle for a pass.
But don't commit yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
You don't always have to go into the boards to get hit and get taken out of the play. No matter what Don Cherry and these rest of these non-Bud Light drinking guys say, you don't always need to take yourself out of the game. Same way goes. You also don't need to lay a big hit every time, because guess what? That takes you out of the play as well. But not to get onto that topic, Mitchie was not skating in game one the way he was today. And that's the issue with him, right? He's able to do such amazing things. So maybe you notice it when he doesn't a little bit more than other guys. And I'll give him that. And again, but I still think to myself, everybody knows what a big game one is for this team specifically at home. Yeah, they had to come out big, right? This series is obviously much different if we're going to Tampa 2-0 than it is 1-0, right? Now we need the split, and they're very capable of getting the split, no doubt. But these are good teams. These are good teams, and again, bounces go certain ways. But if they come out like this, if Mitch Marner plays the game he did today, pushing the pressure, right? Mitch is great when he's putting pressure on the other team.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying last day, where it's like he wasn't moving his feet. He doesn't need to be a checker. He doesn't need to get a stick. You just need to put pressure. You need to go out, whether you're down 1-0 or 4-0. You need to continue that pressure, because like we saw the last 2 games, man, any team can get 3 goals within a couple minutes with how talented these guys are.
It's
right.
True.
So you have to push.
So let me ask you about a couple names specifically here. We'll hit a couple quick hitters. Let's move to the blue line. Morgan Rielly has maybe the game of his life or the game of his career, certainly as a Leaf. Puts up 4 assists. That sets an all-time Leaf record for defensemen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, beats out Ian Turnbull back in 1976. Morgan Rielly rings that one up. So incredible game for him. We have talked on and off all year on the show. He doesn't always look great in his own end. That's not his game. The way he defends is to have the puck and not have it in his end, and that's a valid argument. I thought he was reasonably solid defensively, and man, fantastic tonight offensively, right? With some of the reads, some of the setups, some of the things he was doing, walking the blue line. A great game for Morgan Rielly.
Vintage Rielly, right? This is Rielly 2.5, 3 years ago, before the hip injury. That I think we could all agree has clearly has changed his game. Hip injuries are common in hockey, unfortunately, and it happens to defensemen more than forwards. And whether that's getting hit, when you're chasing pucks back or whatever it might be. He was dynamite today, right? And he's the guy that going into the season, you're like, this, as talented as our forwards are, you need a guy to power play, to quarterback these things, to have that type of vision. whether you're in your zone or in the offensive zone, and he was the guy we want him to be today, right? Like, and that's hats off to that guy because he's been a little bit of a whipping boy this year.
Yeah, that's right.
He hasn't had a great
and not
season.
always unfairly, right? He's struggled at times.
Nope,
right?
for sure.
So let me ask you about another guy. We're going to keep bouncing, buddy.
Yeah.
Another guy on the blue line I want to ask you about. What have you thought so far in this series of Justin Holl? Because when Tampa scored early in the second to make it 3-1, and everybody's butt cheeks clamped down a little bit and got a little tighter, he was the guy on the ice again. Now, you can make an argument that it's Nylander who misses his assignment on that backtrack, right? It's a 4-on-2. Willie's supposed to be the guy as the first forward back who grabs, the center, and I forget which one was rushing in, and he does. Yeah. He goes to the puck, and it makes Justin Holl look bad, but it's not just Willie on that play making Holl look bad. He had, at that point, been on the ice for 7 of Tampa's first 8 goals in the series, and man, that is ugly. At other times, you're seeing him on the PK blocking shots. He's doing some okay things. He's another guy that the fan base can turn on really easily. I think it would be a stretch to say that Justin Holl has gotten off to a good start in this series, but where are you at on him right now?
I keep him in Game 3.
Yeah.
I keep him in Game 3. I think you have to. Obviously, his game was better today. The entire team's was better today.
Of course, yeah.
My fear, and I think you probably share this with me here, is Cooper has last change for the next 2 games, and can he take advantage, get his guys out there, get Kuch on against him, get Stamkos out against him, guys who are smart with the puck, who can drag him out of position and put us in a bad spot, right?
Yeah.
Can Cooper do that? It's gonna. So as a team, you go, listen, we can't give up these draws in our zone, right? You got to do a good job of getting it at least to the blue line, get it out a bit. But again, these are discussions that have to be made properly by the team and plan for this because they're going to try to take advantage of him. And if there's draws in our zone, we can't have him on the ice. That would be my thing.
I was really surprised, man, on this game being in Toronto. I don't know about how you felt about it, but I was really surprised to see them load up the top line with Stamkos, with Point and Kucherov. Stammer in Game 1 and in plenty of other years has played on line 2, either with Rielly or with Nick Paul or whoever else might be down, and they spread it out a little bit. That team, that top line looks incredibly dangerous, and they scare you every time they're on. But it gets pretty thin fast once you load up that top line. And so
you've got Hagel, right? Like your only other guy's Hagel. He should have hit 30 points this year, and I don't know what happened in the year. He kind of dried up, but he's a guy. Sorry, 30 goals. He should have had 30. I think he finished with 20, 29. But he was sitting at he was at 25 by the All-Star game. I swear. Super talented dude. He obviously gave us a lot of trouble last year as a 2-way forward.
Yeah. But when you're on the road,
he's better with a guy like Stamkos.
Sure.
Right?
When you're on the road, you load up that top line. Like I said, it's scary when that top line is out there, but you can get them at home. Keefe can get the matchup he wants against them. Maybe it's Matthews and you go power on power. They did that a bit. Maybe it's Kampf. Maybe it's O'Reilly. But you're pretty comfortable, right? Whereas if you just kept Stamkos, I'd have loaded up that top line at home when you have last change and you can put it out there probably against the Tavares line, right? Cooper's come after him a lot, and fair enough, right? Him with Willie is not stellar defensively. So you sort of understand why that happens. I was surprised that they kind of went with that matchup. I want to talk to you about one of Toronto's lines in the matchup that they were creating tonight, and that was Ryan O'Reilly with Matthew Knies and Noel Acciari. Coming in, look, the third period was a total shit show, but at the end of the second period, shots when Ryan O'Reilly, Knies, and Acciari were out there together were 9-1 in favor of Toronto. That line dominated, and part of that is, like I said, the lack of depth once they moved Stamkos onto the point line for Tampa. That Ryan O'Reilly line has some easier matchups, but man. If that's going to be a thing, if those guys can control their minutes like that, and maybe not quite to this degree, but you feel a whole lot better, and it makes sense that's why they would put Knies with O'Reilly and Acciari, right? 2 guys that responsible. But man, that line, pretty pleasant surprise.
Oh, you want to hear a hot take?
Okay.
And I know you do, but this was my biggest complaint about Keefe in the second half of the season. We went out Dubas goes out, gets O'Reilly, and proceeds to put John Tavares on his wing.
I didn't hate getting a look at it.
You get and this. You just answered exactly what I was going to say, and I know everybody was in love with this. You're getting Ryan O'Reilly, Tavares, Nylander. Look how great this line is. We got ROR so that we could go Matthews, Tavares, ROR down the middle. Listen, it is proven time and time again. This is how you win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you have to get some injury luck, but you can send 3 centermen who are all at worst second-line centermen, which Matthews is obviously a 1A. Tavares at this point of his career is a 1B or 2A+++.
Sure.
O'Reilly is a 2B.
Yeah.
We can roll these guys out. They can all play different roles.
I fully assumed, man, on the road, I assumed that's what we would do. When we got to Tampa, I assumed they would put one of those 3 guys on each line, and that protects you when Cooper starts playing his matchup games. At home, I didn't hate the idea of loading up that second line with Willie, Tavares, and O'Reilly when you controlled the matchups, right?
Yes, you control the matchups. My whole issue with it is, again, where these teams match up so evenly as far as skill, here or there, there's one line a little bit better here or there, whatever. That makes our third line significantly better than their third line, in my opinion. And, you got a guy with RR who can do so many things like Tavares. It's like, RR is better defensively, but they're tit for tat in other ways, like on the draw. They do the little things. They make their coverage. They don't make dumb plays. They're smart players. I think having those guys go 2-3, you can minimize time. You can always switch once in a while, get them doubled up. But overall, you have those 3 lines running. That's how you win 7-game series.
Yeah.
And I know he got hurt. Right? I know he got hurt, but I couldn't understand why even before he got hurt or when he came back, we kept throwing Tavares on the wing. For what purpose? I'm like, I want to see ROR in the middle working with guys. I want to see what is happening, who's got better chemistry,
I'll be honest,
what happens when the game's on the line.
Let's see both. That was my...
Sure, but then do both, right? Like, do both. Don't just do one.
They lost the chance to do that when he got hurt, right? And so it was about seeing if he was going to click with Tavares. In my opinion. Let me just hit you with one other thing before we get out of here, man. Let's talk about Ilya Samsonov. I don't know about you. My opinion on him hasn't changed much after tonight from game 1. Now, obviously, he was better. The Leafs did not give up 7 like they did in game 1, but he wasn't tested anywhere near as much, right? And part of that is that's been the deal all year. When the Leafs are playing well, they're a really good defensive team this year. Very good structure. They keep shots to the outside. It makes life easier for your goalie. And I didn't think he looked nervous tonight, like maybe he did with a couple of rebounds in game 1. But I don't know that we answered a ton of questions. And part of that, like I said, is just a credit to the way the Leafs played. Do you feel more assured about Samsonov or about the same? Like, where are you at on him? Obviously, they're not going to go to Wall now in game 3. Like, you've got the win. He looked fine. But where are you at with Samsonov after game 1 versus game 2?
I am exactly where I've been with Samsonov the entire season. Nothing has changed for me. I don't think he's going to steal us any games.
Right.
I've never convinced, or he's never convinced me otherwise. I don't know, I'm sure some fans, probably some very smart, educated fans, are probably hoping for that. Listen, he is who he is. He's the goalie who, behind a good defensive team, plays good hockey. But that's all this team needs.
But as it pertains to tonight, did he do anything tonight to change your opinion? Because we knew coming in.
Oh, no.
But we knew coming in, his playoff numbers in Washington were terrible. Right. Yeah. And everyone said, he's kind of fine during the regular season. He's not good in the playoffs. And then we got to game 1 and he was terrible for us. And terrible is probably stretching it. There was so hold on. He goes through game 1. He isn't great. We can argue whether or not he was terrible. Like, perception is, how many rebounds are his fault, this and that.
Yes. Yeah.
He did not instill any confidence in you in game 1. Coming into game 2, they won big, but they did not give up anywhere near the same quality of chances. So Are you any more high on him? Are you at all down on him? Like, where do you stand now on this?
2 points.
Okay.
2 points on this. One is, as I was saying, it didn't change, right? Like, even game one didn't change because I didn't think those goals were his fault. Yeah, I think he was left out to dry.
6, at least a couple are your
fault. Okay, 1 or 2 are his fault, but there was too many times where the defenseman was a half step behind. So it's not a 1-on-none because the defenseman is kind of he can kind of see, right? He's just got the best seat in the house.
Yeah,
that's not his fault, right?
We talked about the second goal in game one where he had stopped 2 or 3 times and they cashed it on the 3rd or 4th rebound. Just like at some point,
banging away like it's him. Yeah, like it's EA Sports 23 out there. Like, come on, man! Like, fucking pick up a check.
Yeah,
or maybe take a penalty there, right?
Sure.
Like, take the penalty there, get the play stoppage. I don't know, do something, right? So he didn't. Nothing in that game made me more worried than today's game made me feel more stable about him.
Right, okay.
Because I always just look at him as a competent goalie, but that's always what I've thought the Leafs should be doing over the last 2-3 seasons is just get a guy. Don't get as much as I love Soupy was either awesome or shit.
Yep.
You want a guy who's just going to give up 2 to 3.5 goals a game.
Yeah, and you're not going to pay that guy $5 million. So good for Soupy to go get it, but that couldn't happen here. So,
but that's what I mean, though. Like, get the guy who's just better than average. Again, I didn't want to take Samsonov out after game one. It would have been different if he gave up 4 today. Yeah. I still wouldn't think of him as a different goalie. I would have just thought, hey, it's in his head. You're not a playoff guy. That's different.
Well, my second does, though. Just before you move to your second point, I'm going to let you have that. But just that would, if he'd given up 4 tonight, and you're going, well, it's in his head. That would make me consider going to Wall for Game 3.
Oh no, but it wouldn't change my perception of him as an NHL goalie.
Okay.
Like, you still know who he is.
Fair enough.
Right? Like, to me, I still know who he is. He's still getting a job next year. Nobody's changing their mind, right?
Fair enough.
Again, if he's better over the series, it changes a lot of GM's minds as well, right?
Yep.
My second point about this was going to be, his playoff struggles in the past. Listen, that's a guy who probably had never even met, 5 out of, the 12 forwards on Washington because they never back-checked deep enough to help the guy out. Okay?
Sure.
Because they're all too worried about they're more worried about
He's
wearing.
Met Kuznetsov in a hotel room in Vegas once or twice, but never in his own zone.
Exactly.
No, I'm with you. We'll see what happens when it's we talked all year about Samsonov having the killer home record and the somewhat questionable road record. He's going to have to figure that out. They're going to need him to withstand some pressure down in Tampa. Quick comment, I guess, before we wrap up. I don't have much, to be honest with you, but on that third period, because, like I said, I tweeted out at Talkcan Audio, you can follow us there, that's exactly what I expected. I was sort of like at 6-1 at the end of the second, we're home and cooled here, and then a friend of mine texted me, he's like, hey, so which Tampa is going to have the adult fourth-line temper tantrum and cripple one of the Leafs in the third? And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm suddenly nervous again, right? Like,
yeah.
It wasn't... to their credit, because a lot of Leaf fans have been ripping the officiating basically all year, but certainly coming out of game. I thought in the third period, for the most part, that the Eric Furlat and whatever the other guy's name was did an okay job in the third, stopping it from boiling over. But you did see some stupid shit, right? Pat Maroon is just throwing Giordano to the ground. Kucherov twice is knocking the stick out of Samsonov's hand, and then on a 5-on-3 penalty, Matthew Knies gets called for knocking the stick out of someone else's hand because we just don't want any more goals, so we'll call off the 5-on-3.
Yeah.
Stupid shit like that.
That was a clear, let's get this.
Yeah, because the 5-on-3 was created because the guy shot it over the glass, right? So the refs had no choice but to call it.
No, it was it was the hand pass that he didn't think anybody was going to see. He caught it in the air.
Wasn't that the first one? And then the shot it over after?
The second one was the over the head.
So either way, something you have no choice but to call.
Yeah.
And then but you're immediately going to be like, how can we undo this, right? Because they're trying to keep the temperature low. Look, I thought for the most part, the refs did their best trying to keep it in check, but Tampa clearly came out trying to be like, well, this is over. We'll see if we can maim somebody before we go back to Tampa. What'd you think of the third period just before we wrap up here?
I rip refs just like everybody else, especially when I'm on the ice. So I got to give it up to them when they call a good game. I didn't love every call, obviously.
Never
I think
did,
our first penalty was I can't remember who even got it, but
That
there
was
was
the Matthew Knies, wasn't it? The hooking or the
hook. Yeah, it was on that. Yeah, that
what
like
is
phantom
that?
hook.
Yeah.
That felt very clear to me as I had to make that call on Marner when he went down.
Yeah.
So let's kind of give you one back.
Yeah.
If Toronto doesn't score there, I don't think Knies gets the penalty. But because it was just such a bang 45 seconds, they were like, okay, who's the first one we can kind of, who can we get here a little bit?
Sorry, Rook, it's going to be you. Go sit in the box.
Yeah, twice today. Sorry, bud. Yeah. At least you're getting on the score sheet, right?
Yeah,
his poor I don't know if you caught the shot of his poor mother.
Repeatedly, she was on the screen.
Well, after the penalty in the third period, they zoned in on her, and she's just there going, Matthew.
Oh, and you and
I'm like,
you and I have both heard that condescending Matthew.
I felt it. I felt that so deep. Man, I was like, I stood up out of my seat. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say?
Looking over our shoulders, right? Like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, it wasn't me. So again, I think they did a better job today of controlling the game. Overall, I thought they let more away.
Yeah.
Without letting too much away, right? Because you don't want to let too much, because then it gets to a point where
it's fucking crazy. Yeah.
Then you get Bunting throwing an elbow because he's frustrated, right?
Yep.
Or if it's not going to be that, it's going to be something similar, or maybe something more subtle, but that causes a huge injury because guys are getting frustrated and fed up, right?
Right.
I think we're all at the point as NHL fans, not just Leaf fans, we have to just think of Kucherov as Draymond Green and realize he's a dick, he's a prick, and they circumvent. He's probably the guy there going, what? Give me the season off, guys. I'll just hang out in the sun and bring me in.
That once.
Yeah. No, I don't. He was the first one to do it.
Yeah, $9 million over the cap T-shirt and everything.
He was the guy who did it and then wore the T-shirt to the fucking parade.
Yeah,
he's a little bit of a prick, and you know what? If Ryan O'Reilly
like Sean Avery, but with more skill, which is a dangerous fucking combination, man.
I had to really run that one through my head for a second there.
Holy fuck! Yeah.
Let's hope he doesn't have the same post NHL career.
Yeah,
that's all I'll say with that one.
True.
But this just makes me hate this guy even more. He's a baby. He's a brat. Just skating by like he's played hockey. You played sports. Mm-hmm. There's things you say to get under people's skin.
Sure.
There's little chirp in hockey, lacrosse. There's sports like where you have a stick in your hand. You can give people little taps here and there. Yeah. But just shooting the goalie stick away as a dick move, man. Like that's just a absolute dick move. That's one of the things that
when you're down 6-1, you're just you come off as a child, right?
If I'm on the other team, I might shoot the puck at him when he's on the bench. Like that's the type of dick that I am, right?
Very alphy of you. Yeah.
Oh, but like he's a dick. Screw that guy, man. Like there's things you can do that again. Throwing the goalie stick away is not in the quote unquote code that all these guys like to talk about.
Of the code. Everybody
never
loves
once
the
has
code.
that. So, and I hate the code, right? I hate the baseball code. I hate the NHL code. So stupid.
Yeah.
That doesn't even qualify as it. And outside of the fact that the Leafs got it talking to and said, don't fuck around, somebody would have taken a run at him. Right? It's like
maybe
we don't have
not
the
really
depth
that
to
team.
do this.
I don't know, but
oh no! But that's the thing. You don't need. It's not having a fighter. It's not having the Wayne train out there. These are things.
I'm a Tanner Jeannot. Twice, 2-3 times tries to get Shen to fight him, and Shen's like, I'm up 6-1, fucker. I'm not fighting you. And he just keeps coming, and he just keeps coming, and finally they drop the gloves, and Shen's just like, all right.
Even Gio, right? He's trying to fight. And
he was going to fight Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and then all of a sudden Zach Bogosian rushes in. Yeah. But that one with Shen in the third, to me, was funny, because 2 or 3 times, when you're up that much, you're like, nah, get the fuck out of here. I don't need to fight you. The guy keeps coming at him, and Shen's like, all right, and beats the high holy piss out of him, right? Like, it was
which was good. I mean,
it was fun, but so look, I think this will be it till after Game 4 on the weekend. I know you're a far more socially active guy than I am, so you'll have things to do. I think you're looking at going down to check out.
Wow, you're putting that on me when I know very well it's you.
So I was gonna say, I'm having some company, but we will sit around and maybe fondue. Maybe we'll sip some wine or something, my friends. Right? We're not going to do anything.
You were talking to a guy who called in from the Dominican Republic
I know, man.
last year.
That's what I'm saying. You're committed to this shit. That's true. But I got company coming on Saturday. I know on a Saturday you're normally a more sociable guy. You're going to head down and check out the tailgate.
I'm hoping to. Yeah, I made a call to somebody I know who works for a company who might be able to give me a hand getting there.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
So we're going to see. It's still they're figuring it out, but we're going to see if I can get down there. Weather looks okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I had a couple buddies down there today. It looked like they had a really good time. So yeah, we'll feel it out. At worst, I'll be somewhere. Hopefully, if not. With some buddies, maybe at a bar, try to take in some of the atmosphere too from downtown.
Well, I know if you're at the tailgate, you'll take good care of the Tall Can Audio Instagram.
And I'll tell you what,
some stuff there.
Maybe, I'll just do a solo podcast, and I'll just send it over.
You send the audio, I will post that shit, man. I absolutely will post that. So,
well, then we better hope it's a win, because or else it's going to get real. Without you here to moderate me, it's going to get
Matty
real bad.
After Dark. Yeah. We'll see what that all looks like. But I also want to let the good listener know that this is episode 1099, Matty. You were up for 1,000.
Oh.
So tomorrow, as you and I sit here, but probably later this afternoon by the time most people hear it, on episode 1100, just for a slightly different Leaf take, Down Goes Brown's going to jump on the podcast.
There we go.
Yeah. He wrote an interesting piece right after game one, when Leaf fans, they were melting down a little, as we tend to do.
Yeah, as we do.
And he'd written a similar piece before, Matty. I can't remember whether it was right after the Tampa series last year or after the Montreal series 2 years ago, where he was talking about, in all of his years, he can't remember Leaf fans being so close to the edge, right? Just being like, fuck it, call me a playoff time. Like, it just sort of sick of what this Leaf team has done to them, and it was clearly bleeding through again after game one. So he wrote another similar piece on The Athletic. I will share the links to that piece because I thought it was interesting, and I thought it might be fun to talk to DGB as we're sort of even up again, and just get his take as a longtime Leaf fan. He's got his thumb on the pulse of what a lot of people in his mentions, right, where they're at too. So. Look for that on Friday afternoon. We're going to have DGB on. That's going to be fun, too. And then
beautiful.
Maybe we'll hear from Matty on Saturday. We'll see what
I'm going to plan. I'm going to plan for it. I'm going to toy around with
You send me some audio. I will post that.
Make sure the audio is good, and make sure it's not a 3-hour one-man show.
Diatribe, yeah. I will absolutely post that if that comes in. And then you can all look for us after game 4 again, which I believe will go down on Monday. So
yeah, I'd have to check. I think it's every 2 days, right? I think that's what we were.
Yeah, there is a break. I think between 4 and 5.
Okay,
the 2-day break.
I would go to your knowledge on that. Yeah. I don't think I've looked that far ahead. And now, Matt, before we do wrap up, one question you usually ask me, you didn't ask me today. It's what I'm drinking, and.
It's Bacardi over here. It's a playoff.
Even after a win, eh? Jeez, look at this guy.
Because it started before the game. I was far too nervous. Yeah. What you got, Matty?
Oh, God. You're giving up too much about your personal life right now. That's the problem.
I am just, by the end of a Leaf playoff game, there is a puddle of sweat and Bacardi at the foot of my couch. That's it.
My beer drinking had, and you know how much I love a pint, right?
Yeah.
Like, as long as I know you know how much I love a pint more than anything else.
Yep.
As far as alcohol goes, and actually more things in life I prefer a pint over. So, I have really cut down my just day-to-day beer. Sure. I just don't have a beer regularly unless there's a reason. Yeah, because I'm getting old, right?
Yeah.
But man, a Leaf playoff game, I'm like, I'm not sitting down without. I need something to take the edge off, and so I was just going to give a little small brewery shout out to Great Lakes Brewery, who I've been getting my beer from directly from the brewery. They've got for those Toronto listeners. Mm-hmm. It only used to be in the West End, Kipling and QEW. They've got a little bottle shop now down at I think it's Parliament and Queens Quay, roughly around that area. So super easy to get to if you're actually in the core. That was the issue. Like just getting onto the Gardiner, getting outside the city was a little bit of a pain. But now they got this little shop down around the kind of east end of the Harborfront.
Gorgeous.
And it's also on Uber Eats. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay.
I'm going to throw that out there.
Nice.
And hey, here's a little plug for them. Not only is it good beer, but they're let's call it the regular beers, the lagers, the light beers, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
The not super heavy stuff. My favorite beer all time is Octopus Likes to Fight from Great Lakes Brewery.
I have that in the studio almost all the time. There's always a couple
Beautiful
of them
beer,
sitting
right?
there. Yeah,
awesome beer. Now that's not this cheap, but the regular beers are all kind of in the 230 to 260, 270 range for a tall boy. So very affordable.
Yes.
I actually worked it out. It's cheaper for me to get it if I can't get there myself. To get it from Uber is actually cheaper for me than going to the LCBO.
Wow.
And I don't know why or how they're keeping it cheaper in their own place, but there you go. There's my plug for those guys because they're awesome. I want to keep them in business. I don't want them to leave. So I got myself. I hope I don't drink it all by the next game, but I got myself an 8-pack pre-game. Called when I was at work, so it met me by the time I got down.
Yeah, waiting for you at the door.
Exactly.
They're one of those breweries, Great Lakes, with and I'm sure you'll be down there in the not too distant future, Matty, with the renovated Sky Dome. They have added some craft beer options around the park. Great Lakes is in there,
awesome.
Muskoka's in there, Osthouse is in there. There's a couple others that are now in the dome, and I'm sure you'll be down there as well. I will.
I've made my call. I've made one of my calls to somebody to get my preferred tickets.
Love that. All right.
But I'm trying to. I want it to be. I don't like to get down to the dome, until mid May when I know the dome's going to be open and it should be a little bit warmer, right?
Yeah, of course.
With playoffs on, call me when the weather warms up a little bit, right?
So for the good listener, stick around. Like I said, Friday afternoon, it'll be Down Goes Brown on the podcast in time for your Friday afternoon commute. I'll make sure that's posted. Co-hosting the Monday morning show this week will be Steve Bunda. We'll talk about something other than the Leafs for those of you who aren't all in on that. And then Matty will be back after Game 4. He and I will touch base. We'll see how the Leafs have done following.
What the heck is Bunda doing on the show? There's no Patriots to talk about, and there's no WWE to talk about. What is he on the show? UFC? What is he talking about?
We
today?
can find some fights to talk about, but should be a lot of fun. Matty, appreciate it as always. We're going into the weekend feeling a little better than we did after Game 1. We'll see where we are after 2 games in Tampa Bay.